Today marks 80 years since the Japanese attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Hundreds showed their respect at the commemoration today. Veterans, survivors, family members, military leaders, and service members gathered in Honolulu for the remembrance ceremony that you see here. This year's theme, valor, sacrifice, and peace. Few survivors are still alive today. Butte County's last service member who was there during the Pearl Harbor attack died in early 2020. Alan Marsden joins us now. Alan, you spoke with the Chico man, though, who was living in Hawaii when this all happened. Is that right?
Absolutely right, Haley. Although he was just 7 years old, Patrick Dunn's memories of that day remain vivid. Now, I spoke with him about what it was like to witness such a significant historical event. 1941. What was it like to be a child in those days in Hawaii?
First off, we played football after school in our bare feet.
Born and raised in Honolulu, Pat Dunn says growing up in paradise was everything you would imagine it to be.
Our neighbors had a huge mango trees, and they were God's gift to man.
Pat was the youngest of 5 children. His parents moved to Hawaii from Delaware before he was born, his father eventually becoming the controller at the Royal Hawaiian Hotel on the not yet world-famous Waikiki Beach. But paradise was shattered the morning of December 7th, 1941. The surprise Japanese attack began just before 8 a.m. 21 ships damaged or destroyed, 2,403 service members killed. 7-year-old Pat Dunn was attending Mass at St. Augustine's Catholic Church at Waikiki.
After the gospel, which was read in English, Father told us we are at war. He gave us his blessings, told us to go home.
The memories of that day were permanently seared into his young mind, including his father's race to get his family home.
He makes a right turn where the Waikiki Theater is, boom. We stopped. There was a huge crater there. The houses were pucked, marked with holes.
From his Honolulu home, young Pat saw just one Japanese Zero that day, but the fear for the boy, for his family, and for their neighbors was intense.
That first night, December 7th, we stayed put.
In darkness.
In darkness.
In the ensuing war years, scores of American service members would be welcomed as guests at the Dunn family home. Young Pat delighted in asking for and receiving patches from them, which he still treasures 8 decades later.
This is a WW2CB patch.
And 8 decades later, he becomes emotional when he remembers one B-29 crew that visited his home, in particular, the Bombardier.
And I can remember to this day, he stood with his back to the kitchen. We were in the front room, and he sang, Oh Danny Boy. And it was magnificent.
Even children could not avoid the realities of war. That Bombardier with the magnificent voice, young Pat would learn, was later killed. The war would end. Pat Dunn would head to the mainland for college and a career as a teacher. He married a teacher, Dolores. They would have 2 daughters, 4 grandchildren as the decades race by. But he has never forgotten that day in December 1941, a day he hopes will never be forgotten.
When you visit Honolulu, find time to go out to Pearl Harbor. They paid the price, which started our story, our history, and completely turned the world around.
I've been. It's a must-see. In fact, 1.7 million people visit the Arizona Memorial every single year from all over the world.